I made a Star Wars video recently. It did alright, I guess. Bit of a mixed response. A few mean comments, but a lot of really nice ones too. I've since moved on, got back on the grind and put together some more videos, but then I got this comment yesterday telling me that an alt-right YouTuber, Smudboy, had used that video in its entirety for his channel. As you can imagine, that piqued my interest, so let's get to know Smudboy. According to his channel's About page, Smudboy uses objective observation and analytical editor-style methods, and what seems pedantic or nitpicky to some, Smudboy merely considers being a good editor. Smudboy's channel is a bigger one than mine, but he didn't feel the need to ask permission to reuse my content, or even to let me know as a courtesy. In fact, the only time I'd seen Smudboy's name before this point was in the comment section of that video, where in lieu of letting me know about his little project, he threw a bunch of hopelessly vague criticisms my way, dressed up in fancy words, and then straight dipped after I pointed out the fact that he'd just misrepresented one of the things I'd said. What seems pedantic or nitpicky to some, Smudboy merely considers being a good editor. But yeah, it turns out this guy's got a YouTube channel, and on this channel he runs a so-called Smudcast, which seems to be yet another Every Frame a Pause clone. So think Discount Mauler, except this channel seems to have an even higher ceiling for just how insensitive and stupid things are allowed to get. And wouldn't you know it, there's my content. But this video's not going to be some point-by-point rebuttal of the whole thing, because A, I don't have time to sit through all, 5 hours of this quote content, and B, doing some big systematic response would, I think, legitimize what Smudboy and friends are doing here. This harmful, hateful, low-effort bile disguised as media criticism. But I am going to give some quick rebuttals to the stuff I did catch, from the first chunk of the video I actually managed to sit through, because I know for a fact that some viewers have come to my channel via Smudboy, so I'd like to spend just a bit of time setting the record straight. In the first of many efforts to argue against the title of my video rather than the video itself, this is how Smudboy's video starts.
Investigating Star Wars racism problem. Now you might be thinking, racism in Star Wars, a space opera with dozens and dozens of aliens? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is a racism problem. I had no idea. I never actually counted the aliens. Yeah, there's probably a decrease in Twi'leks proportional to the Ewoks. I don't know, one of those.
And here's the thing. This might come as a shock to some of you, but Star Wars isn't real. Star Wars is fiction. It's a cultural product, developed and produced over the last 40 years or so in America, which happens to be on Earth. The various pieces of media which make up Star Wars are all written, directed, designed, acted, and so forth by real human people. And it's watched by real human people. Well, sometimes anyway. Smudboy doesn't seem to understand this. In his mind, Star Wars does not and cannot intersect with the social issues of the society that created and received it, because it isn't set in our world. It's set in space. This is a point Smudboy doubles down on repeatedly, but Star Wars doesn't exist on some abstract plane, or even in a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars exists as a collection of earth-bound works, which influence and are influenced by society in countless ways, and which are tied inseparably to the material conditions of their production, release, and reception. When people talk about things like racism in Star Wars, this is what they're talking about, not fucking Twi'leks. Of course, fictional races and the way they're positioned by and treated in these stories is a part of this, but even stuff like this is indisputably a mediation of real-world attitudes and ideas about race, alienation, Orientalism, and so on. After this, the next 10 minutes or so are spent again arguing against the title of my video instead of the contents, as well as misunderstanding what a mole is, and hating on Ewan McGregor, because I guess that's what Star Wars fans do now. They return to my video, or should I say they start with my video, at around the 11-minute mark. This is how my video opens. Hi everyone, hope you're doing well, because I'm not. I'd just come back from a lovely stroll into town with a latte and a pan o' raisin. It was a great afternoon, but then I made the mistake of opening Reddit. This is how the fine fellows over at the Smudcast respond.
Yeah, well, I stroll into town with my latte all the time, yeah, it's great.
He's a rich fuck living in the city and never having seen the real world.
The function this section plays within their larger project here is fairly obvious. It's a fun little ad hominem attack to paint me as some out-of-touch liberal elite. And they're doing this near the start of the Chudcast allows the remaining, again, 5 hours of content to proceed with this supposition tacitly operating throughout. It's so transparent and just dumb that it's not worth engaging with, but I'm gonna engage with it anyway. Reach Kid City Boy, right? Fucking hashtag it, Latte Gate. This is the view out my window. If you could tell me which city this is, that'd be lovely, because I've got no fucking clue. And you can reverse image search this if you want, but you won't get any hits because I took it like 5 minutes ago. And I know I'm taking a slight risk putting this image in here, given how dox-happy reactionary YouTubers and their fans are, but to be honest, you'd have to be like GeoWizard to figure out my address from this. So if you manage to dox me from this image, fair play. Second, I'm a full-time YouTuber with fewer than 20,000 subscribers, and I'm one who so far hasn't managed to secure any sponsorships, so I wouldn't have thought it would need saying outright, but I don't have a lot of money. But the day I made that video, after a morning spent working on another video, I thought, you know what, pillar of garbage is allowed a pastry and a cup of coffee every now and then as a treat. The reason I even mentioned that in the video was that, to begin with, I was writing it as more of a stream of consciousness thing. I literally saw the meme and opened my laptop to start writing. That's how shooketh it got me. And sure, it's not exactly relevant to the rest of the video, but it takes up 6 seconds of an 18-minute video. You want to guess how long it takes Wish EFAP over here to discuss this same opening trio of sentences? 3 whole minutes.
Yeah, on Reddit.
Yeah, that's what I take from that. No normal person walks through town with a latte.
Nobody cares about this motherfucker and his Starbucks coffee. Like, get to the point of the video, you piece of shit.
Ironic.
These are far from the only inaccurate observations or insults thrown my way during these videos. They just opened the floodgates.
So what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this racist idiot? What is he? What is he called? Pillar of garbage. This racist pillar of garbage can't even tell what culture something is based on in fiction.
Well,
they're very obviously Bedouins.
Yeah, it's clearly a form of projection on his part.
Yeah, side note, I'm just getting clips together to edit with, and I found this section where these guys are just losing their fucking minds over a link I made between the roles Tusken Raiders play in the original Star Wars films and the roles Native Americans often played in the Western genre. And yeah, I'm sure the Bedouin were part of the inspiration for the Tusken Raiders, but there aren't any Bedouins in Western films, which is what I'm talking about in this sentence. Like, come on, it's beyond common knowledge that the Western genre was one of the primary touchstones the original Star Wars films, particularly in New Hope, drew from. Just like read anything anyone's ever written about the production of those films, or just watch the searches. Star Wars' Tusken Raiders are a mishmash of different influences and ideas, one of which is undoubtedly the structural role these other depictions of Native Americans played in many classic Western films. But like, these guys think that the Tusken Raiders map one-to-one onto an existing cultural group, and that I'm racist because I picked the wrong one-to-one match. Yep, and apparently I'm the one who's projecting here. I'm not bringing these up to fish for sympathy though. I'm doing so to make explicit the way that this whole shtick is underwritten not by objective analysis, but by bad faith assumptions. Wow, I wonder if that principle's more widely applicable to the way these guys engage with media. It's not just directed at me though. There's a whole litany of toxic comments and outright slurs dropped by Smudboy and friends, even in the first half an hour or so that I sat through. In between claims that Disney's the real one stoking the toxicity, that there's no such racism problem in Star Wars, and that they're the ones being gaslit, the Chudcast are doing things like blatantly lying about the contents of the hate messages Moses Ingram made public.
And it's always exactly 2 DMs, by the way.
That half wasn't even racist. It was just like, no, you're not the first black person. That's not a racism.
This is the message he's talking about, by the way. I've censored the slur, but yeah, it's the one you think it is. What seems pedantic or nitpicky to some, Smudboy merely considers being a good editor. Apparently there's no racism whatsoever in this message. Gee, it's almost like Disney isn't responsible for the fans being racist pricks after all. But yeah, after a while of this, I pretty much just stopped watching it, especially since it had become obvious that they weren't even engaging with my video, not in any way that counts. They were more playing it in 10-second increments and then picking up on a word or idea mentioned in those increments and going on unhinged, loosely related rants to rile up their chat and keep the donations trickling in. And incidentally, the chat? Yeesh! Unsurprisingly, it quickly devolved into a cesspool of open racism and victim blaming. I've been talking about Smudboy throughout, and this is the name of the channel, but it's worth noting briefly that the worst stuff in this video wasn't said by Smudboy himself, but by his guests. Indeed, it seems like Smudboy is trying to position himself in a more neutral space, like a debate moderator rather than a panelist, and he even makes a point to opine near the start that I'm not actually a complete fucking idiot, just mostly.
He's not that horrific, he's not that bad. It's just his interpretations are kind of off.
And you know what? That's a nice gesture, but that's all it is, a gesture. A reminder, that comes mere minutes before stuff like this.
Nobody cares about this motherfucker and his Starbucks coffee. Like, get to the point of the video, you piece of shit.
That nice guy part, the little olive branch, that's completely and utterly empty if it's the prelude to a 5-hour podcast you've set up in which a big group of angry bigots takes turns shitting on me and my content. Despite this, the podcast probably just about falls under fair use of my content in the legal sense, even though, in my opinion, there's nothing really original or valuable being added here, especially since it permits an extremely low-effort way that chuds can profit from my content. At least this whole saga goes to show that my channel's grown enough, and that the content's hitting sufficiently close to home to have elevated my brand to that critical mass where it drives 7 weirdos to sit in a voice call for 5 hours while actually ing my content. As far as I'm concerned though, this video isn't me starting YouTube beef or anything, it's me ending it. Because when the inevitable Smudboy comments and additional instances of content reuse start to roll in, it'd be pretty easy for me to carry on engaging and keep pointing out the massive L's these clowns are taking. But honestly, there's nothing I can say here that a quick scroll down Smudboy's Twitter feed can't say better. And you know, maybe there is some critical flaw in my worldview or my videos that Smudboy uncovered in his 5-hour odyssey of self-fellatio, but if that is the case, I'll never know. So I'm gonna wrap this video up and get back to making actual content. And if you're watching this, Smudboy, maybe you should give that a try sometime. Before I go though, a note on that Star Wars video. As I alluded to above, I wrote it pretty quickly and it's not perfect. Not for any of the reasons these bozos brought up, but because I didn't make some of my points as explicitly as I perhaps should have done. For instance, going into the specifics of how the whole "I don't hate black people, I just think she's badly written" movement fits into the larger racism problem. And also, when I was working on that video, the situation was still very much developing. I got about 4/5 of the way through making it before Moses actually posted about the hate she'd received. So yeah, it wasn't able to be a totally holistic and all-encompassing analysis of the problem, because of how quickly the narrative was still changing. Have no fear though. When Kenobi's all wrapped up, I'll be returning to this topic, so if you want to see a more thorough and less rushed overview of this whole mess, make sure you come back for that. Thanks as always to all my patrons on screen now, particularly Kevin Douglas, Ian Fifield, and Thrawn7, and also big up Exile Studios for bringing this to my attention. And if you want to see more right-wing grifters get dunked on, might I suggest this video here, where we talk about the way Jordan Peterson doesn't understand the Bible.